Hi everyone, Leah here with Eureka Crystal Beads with another fun beading video for you. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to go check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll always know when we're posting new content. Okay, today's project is a really fun brick stitch Easter egg earring, and as you can see, I've worked a sort of flower and leaf pattern into it, which I think is really fun. So let me show you what we're going to be using to make this. Now we have some Delica colors here. I'm going to be using 4 colors in this earring, but you can use as many or as few as you like if you want to play around with your own pattern. So first of all, I have this beautiful little turquoise color. This is in a Toho treasure, and I'm actually mixing treasures and Delicas just to show you how wonderful they go together. So that's a Toho treasure. And the other 3 colors are my Yuki Delicas. I have a little lovely green here, and I have a little sprinkling of a pale yellow, though we won't need nearly that many. And then I have my flower color, which is a pretty pinky magenta color. Lastly, we're going to need the other ear wire and the other wire guard to finish off this pair. And we'll be using 6-pound Fireline. I'm using the color Crystal. Obviously, you could use your braided bead thread of choice and color, depending on the beads that you're using. And I'm using a size 12 beading needle. Now, I will tell you that having some knowledge of brick stitch is going to be helpful here. This is not going to be standard brick stitch, which naturally just decreases as you do it. We're going to be doing increases and decreases, as well as one line in our earring where we're going to have to do some square stitch to add on just a little bit extra in that second to the bottom row here. So you're not going to want to be a brick stitch beginner. What I will recommend is go checking out our beginner brick stitch tutorial on our YouTube channel, and that's going to help brush you up on the basics, though I will go over them here. I just might go a little bit fast for someone who's never done brick stitch before. Okay, to start our project, we're going to be creating this first row right here at the bottom that has 4 cylinder beads. And like I said, if you're familiar with brick stitch, which you should be before attempting this project, you know that we're going to be using ladder stitch to create that first little row. So I've picked up 2 cylinder beads, and I'm going to go and loop back around and go through the first one all over again. And when I pull that, it's going to pull the second bead right down next to the first one. As far as how long of a tail to leave something that's long enough that you could comfortably stick a needle on that later and weave it in. Now to get to the end of our chain, we're going to go through that second bead. Pinch it between your fingertips nice and tight and give it a little tug. Now we're going to add a third bead. So we pick up our next cylinder bead and we circle back through the bead that's at the end of our chain. And you're going to want to make sure that you're going in the correct direction, which means that the point of your needle is going to come out of this bead on the same side that the thread is coming out of that bead. That's a little indicator that you know you're looping back around the right way. Again, pinch it between your fingers, give it a little bit of a tug, and you're going to see that it sits down nicely next to it. And lastly, to get to the end of this chain, to add our 4th bead, we have to go through the new bead we just added to get to the end of the chain and do the same thing. Pick up one more bead, circle back through. Now you can see our thread is heading away from us while the last bead was heading towards us. It tacks it on just like that. And then we're going to go through that last bead. Just like this. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing for every row of our egg is I'm going to lay the beads of the row that I'm going to be beading right here along the top so you can follow along. So this next row is going to have 7 of our turquoise beads. That's it, just 7 turquoise beads. Now the difference here though between this row that we're going to work on next and the other rows is the other rows are all basic increases and decreases, which I'll show you. But this row right here, this second row that we're creating, as you can see, it juts out a little bit further. That's because on this side and on this side, we're going to be square stitching 1 additional Delica there. After that, it's just going to be some increases and then some increase, decrease, and then some decreases. So the way that we're going to do this is it's going to start off with a standard increase. Now, when you decrease, you pick up 1 bead to start this row, but an increase is you pick up 2 beads. And then there's going to be something we're going to do after we do that. So I'm going to pick up my 2 cylinder beads. I'm going to go underneath my stitch of thread that's in between the last bead and the bead before it. Pull almost all the way through. Pop your beads down if that's helpful. And then we go up that inner bead of the two. Give it a nice little tug. And then normally we would just do the next bead and continue on down the line, but we're going to go back to this bead and we're going to square stitch another bead on the outside. So to do that, we're going to go down that bead at the end. We're going to pick up a new bead and we're going to circle back through it. Just like this. Now, we do want to eventually be coming up from this third bead here, right there on the inside. So now it's a matter of getting back to that bead. So we're going to go up this one at the end. Then we're going to go down the next one in. And then up that bead, which is where we would have been coming up from had we not square stitched on that additional bead. So now we're going to pick up another of our blue beads. We're going to go underneath the little stitch of thread. And my beading tends to be very tight, so this is a little bit tougher, especially to do while on camera holding it so you can see it. But as you can see, we go underneath the little stitch of thread. It's also trickier to do when there's not a lot here to hold on to, but you're going to find that as you build it, it's going to be a lot easier. And we're going to go up that new bead we just picked up. And I like to hold it, give it a little tug straight upwards, and that tightens it up. We're going to do that again. We're going to go underneath that last stitch of thread. Pull down and then go up the new bead. Now here's where we're going to do a standard increase on this side, and then we'll square stitch that additional bead. But to start, we're going to start with a standard increase, which means we're going to pick up one bead and you're going to go down the bead below that's kind of sticking out. And that's how we get it to pop out the other side. But now we need to be coming out of this bead again, that end bead. So we're going to do a little turnaround. Okay, so I flipped my beadwork just to make it easier. Now the turnaround, because we want to be coming back up from here, is we're going to go up the Delica next to this, and then diagonally up one more. So we're 3 Delicas in on that top row. Then we're going to go down that second Delica in, and then we're going to go up the one at the end. Now here's where we're going to square stitch on that next bead. So we're going to pick up that new cylinder bead, head right through here, lock it into place. But you're going to notice that we're coming out of the right bead to start the next row, but we're facing the wrong direction. We're pointing down. We need to point up. So now I'm going to show you my little hack for getting our direction turned around. What I like to do is I like to go back up this bead here. I like to catch myself underneath the stitch of thread that's 2 stitches in. I pull that under, then I go back down that second bead, and I'm able to go up the end bead again, but now I'm going to be pointing up. That's what I like to do. Could there be other ways? Sure, that's my little shortcut. Okay, now we're going to be doing a standard brick stitched row with an increase at either side. Let me lay out my beads again. This one is going to have 8 beads going across, all in our turquoise color. So here are the beads for this next row. I'm going to pick up 2 of them. I'm just going to pick them up from the pile down here, but just so I'll leave them up there so you can see. Because we're starting with an increase, I have 2 Delicas on my needle, or 2 cylinder beads on my needle. I'm going to go underneath that stitch of thread in between the first and second bead. I like to pop this into place a little bit more. And then we go up the bead that's further into the beadwork. Now the rest is going to be going down to the other side as normal. So I picked up one cylinder bead, I went underneath the next stitch of thread, and then up the bead that I just added. I'm going to add on a few more of these beads off camera, and I'll meet you back here at the end of the row to do another increase. Okay, so I just added on the last bead before the increase. So now the increase, like I showed you earlier, is picking up our cylinder bead, and we're going to go down the bead in the next row that's sticking out. And at this point, I'm also going to turn my beadwork too. So that, as you can see, increases the row. So now we want to come up this bead. Now, in theory, could we just go straight up here and we'd have a little thread showing on the outside? Yes, but let's do it the right way. So we're going to go up the bead next to it, and then we're going to go diagonally up another bead. So you'll be on the top row 3 beads in, heading up out of the beadwork. We go down the second to the last bead, and then up the bead that we need to go through to continue our brick stitch. Now this next row is going to be just like the last one. So the next row we're doing is going to be 9 Delicas all in turquoise. I'm going to do the same exact thing that I just did. So I'm going to do this off camera, but just to briefly explain it, I'm going to do an increase with the 2 Delicas, just like I showed you in the previous row. I'm going to add my Delicas going across and then do an increase and a turnaround on the other side, just like I showed you finishing up this previous row. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so this is what we got. Now I've laid out the beads for our next row, which is going to be 3 turquoise, 1 green, 2 turquoise, 1 green, 3 turquoise. Now what's nice about this pattern is that it doesn't matter when you lay out your beads whether you start from this side or this side, because the entire pattern is symmetrical. So as you lay your beads out, it's going to be a mirror image of itself from the center out. So it doesn't matter if you start sometimes from the right side or sometimes from the left side. This is going to be another row of exactly what we did. We're going to be doing an increase at both sides, just like we did to create this row and this row. So the first 2 beads we'll pick up will be the 2 turquoise. Then we'll find our way along, adding 1 bead at a time, brick stitch style, and at the end of the row, we will finish with those last 2 turquoise as our increase. So the steps are not changing. The only thing that's changing is just a couple of the colors of the beads. So I will do that row and be back in a second. Okay, so this is what we have. We have the start of our little leaves in our Easter egg. So the next row I've laid out right here. 2 turquoise, 2 green, 1 turquoise, 2 green, 2 turquoise. Now the difference though is that we're going to be decreasing with this row. Decreasing is even easier than increasing because brick stitch naturally wants to decrease when you're adding 1 bead at a time. So you simply pick up your first bead. Notice we're not picking up 2 beads, we're just picking up 1 bead. That's what's going to form our decrease. It's that second bead that would want to jut out to the side. We locked it down into place. So you can see it's going in as opposed to flaring out. And then now we just continue along the same exact way. 1 bead at a time. So under the next stitch, go up the bead you just added. I'm going to finish this row and come back. Okay, so that's what we got. Now this next row that I've laid out for you is turquoise, 1 turquoise, 2 pink, 1 green, 2 pink, 1 green, 2 pink, 1 turquoise. Now this is going to be an increased row. So we did just do a row where we decreased, but those other rows here where we increased, that's all that we're going to do again. Our first beads that we're going to pick up are going to be the turquoise and the pink. We're going to do the 2 at a time, which is going to create the increase. We're going to head all the way back across, and then at the end, pick up that last bead, go down the bead that's popped out here, do our little turnaround, end the row. See you back in a minute. Okay, here we go. Our next row is going to be a simple decreased row. It's going to have 1 pink, 1 yellow, 2 pink, 1 yellow, 2 pink, 1 yellow, 1 pink. And it's going to be 1 bead at a time for a simple decreased row. All right, here's what we got. Our next row, if I can get it to focus down here, there we go. is going to be 1 turquoise, 2 pink, 1 green, 2 pink, 1 green, 2 pink, 1 turquoise. And this is going to be an increased row. So it's going to pop out just like the row before the one we just did. And of course, they're the same steps we've been doing. Okay, here we go. We can see that our cute little flowers are all complete. You can see the leaves that come down in between them and the start of the leaves on top. Now, I do want to say for a design change, you can make these flowers any color you want, these pink petals any color you want. You could have each flower be a different color. So that's something else to consider as well. Okay, so the next row is going to be 2 turquoise, 2 green, 1 turquoise, 2 green, 2 turquoise. And this is going to be a standard, easy, decreased row. Okay, here's what we got here. Now our next row is going to be another standard decreased row, nice and easy. And the beads we're going to be using are 2 turquoise, 1 green, 2 turquoise, 1 green, 2 turquoise. And we're just doing another decreased row as we start to finish up the form of that egg. Okay, here we go. You can see that our leaves are now finished up. We're going to do another decreased row. This time it's just with our turquoise beads. There's 7 turquoise beads here. And it's going to be a standard decreased row with just 7 turquoise colored beads. All right. Now we're going to do another standard decrease row, nice and easy, this time with 6 turquoise beads. Home stretch now. 1 more decreased row, this time with 5 turquoise beads. All right, we're almost at the end. So where we're at now is we're just needing to add in the 2 little delicas at the top and our wire guard. So the way that's going to happen is you'll notice that I'm coming out of the end of my top row. I'm going to go down the next delica, up the one after that, which has me coming out of the very middle of those top 5 delicas. And all I'm going to do is pick up a turquoise bead. I'm going to pick a side. It doesn't really matter. I can go to the right or the left, and I'm going to go underneath the stitch of thread in between that middle delica and then the one next to it. And then I'm going to go up my delica. And I'm going to do that one more time, but on the other side. So I can pick up that last delica. I'm going to go down the stitch of thread on the other side of the one that we just made. This way, the 2 that we're adding now are going to be nice and centered at the very top. Then go up that delica, and now they're centered at the top. Nice and easy. So now it's wire guard time. If you've never used a wire guard, they're a nice little way to add a finishing look to bracelets or earrings or necklaces where you're going to have a clasp attached. The other option is you could always do a little beaded loop, but I find that using delicas for a beaded loop can look a bit clunky. And because I'm not going to bust out some 15s for this, I'm just going to use a wire guard. So what you're going to do is go up the tube on one side of the wire guard, bring it all the way down. I also like to squish the wire guard closed a little bit more because it's going to go sit in an area that's nice and narrow. You're going to let your fire line sit in the little channel that's at the very top, but you're going to go down the other tube on the other side, and you're going to go down the other delica like that. And then just be careful as you pull it down that your fire line does indeed sit right in that channel. Nice and clean. Now we're going to reinforce that by going up that first delica and through the tube again. We're going to go down the other tube and down the other delica. And again, as we pull down, we're going to pull down nice and carefully so our fire line rests right in that little channel. Nice and clean, which is especially important on an earring that's so dainty. You don't want your focus being up here. You want your focus to be in this cute little flower pattern on our Easter egg. Now it's the easy part. Now we're just going to weave down the side of our beadwork here. We're going to catch our needle underneath some of the stitches of thread. We're going to tie some overhand knots, and that will be it. So I'll be back in just a second. Okay. My tail of thread is woven out. I also wove out the original tail from the beginning. We have our adorable little Easter egg earrings, very festive, very springy. Now we're going to attach our ear wire. And for that, you're just going to need a pair of chain nose pliers. These are the kind of pliers that are flat inside and smooth, and they taper to a point. These are chain nose pliers. You're going to go to the opening of your ear wire, swivel it open, stick your wire guard through. This project in particular has actually made me a big fan of wire guards because I think it just looks really clean in this particular design. And we have our adorable, adorable Easter egg earrings. I absolutely love these. Now, one of the things that you can do is if you go to the Eureka Crystal Beads website and go to our search bar at the top of the website, type in graph paper, and you're going to get a few different stitch downloads that are graph paper. So, for example, there's a brick stitch graph paper. A peyote graph paper. So there's different types of beading graph paper that you can download and print yourself and design out your very own Easter egg. All right, well, thanks for watching. Make sure to visit us on over at the website for the graph paper, the beads, everything I've used in this video. We have cylinder beads that are Miyuki Delicas. We have Toho Eikos. We have Toho Treasures. We can fill all of your cylinder bead needs. We have every color of the rainbow, and you can make Easter egg earrings to your heart's content. Bye, everyone.